All right. So, I don't know, I talk fast, I'm going to try to keep it down. Jen said, please, you got first thing, your job, you're tasked with getting everybody awake and keeping them awake for the rest of the conference and then stirring up stimulating debate as we go in. So that's what I'm going to do today, okay? Some of the things I've talked about in the past, I'm still out there chatting about it. I think the deal here is that what I present to you, you may sit here and say, what the heck is he talking about? That's not anything that I'm interested in doing. I'm going to say, just give it some thought, okay? Just give it some thought as we go along, okay? The shifting role of the implant operation. The olden days, we had the desk, and we'd set it up here, and we would turn our on sign, and we would wait for people to come in and wait behind the counter and say, print 100 million of these things. And that's what we did, right? We had a great run. That's not the way it is now. Right? The role of the implant has changed. And many of you, who I hope are part of the parental mission of the university, realize that you need to be central to that. Right? If anything I can say at the beginning of this speech is make sure that you are central to the mission of the university from which you work at. Okay? This role has changed. Now, I read a lot of books. I'm going to throw a lot of big quotes up here. I'm going to walk you through them. You can have access to the slides. By all means, just kind of pay attention to me. Thomas Friedman, he's a writer out of Washington. Anybody read his book, Thank You for Being Late? Nobody? A book is a collection of knowledge. With my students, I would expect this response. This is great. I'm going to tell you what's interesting about the book. I'm going to tell you about it, right? He wrote this book because what he's saying is that there's so much technological change happening at such a logarithmic rate that we're unable to keep up with it, right? And we know that. I'm going to chat a bit about it, but work with me well. And this is interesting. He puts this in the book. He's not a printer. He says, with the advent of digital information, the recording, storage, and dissemination of information has become practically free. We know that. We were talking, you said that you had seen me speak in Louisiana back in 1960, 1990, I don't know when that was, 2003, 2004. And I brought out, we were just talking about this. It's funny that you actually remember that. I had bought a USB drive that was like 512K. And I paid $169 for it, and I put it on my keychain, and I walked around with it proudly, right? Well, now, in fact, you go to these shows, a lot of the sponsors would give those away, and they're like maybe 4 gigabytes, and students would get them and like step on them like cockroaches because they meant absolutely nothing because it wasn't enough storage space for them, right? So we've really changed in the technology. He's saying, previous time there was such a significant change in the cost structure for the dissemination of information was when the book became popular, right? So we go back to the late 1460s and the 1500s, and we had a great run as printers. Man, 500 years. We just went bonkers, right? We had a heck of a run. Well, that's kind of changed. And he says, look what the impact that had, but now look at this technological kind of a paradigm shift that's taking place and how that's affecting our human dimension today. And I stole a picture, if I should be honest, of some individuals on a subway looking at their phones. Now, interesting story, I spoke in 2008 somewhere, and I told the story. I was on the plane. I get on the plane, I like to be very anonymous. I'm kind of introverted. I know you probably won't believe that. And immediately, what I do is I don't want to have a conversation. I'm tired, and I don't mean it personally. So if I've ever sat beside you and have not had a conversation, don't take it personally. Okay. But what I'll intentionally do is put my earphones in my ears and just let the cord dangle and just kind of make it look like I can't hear because I find it. But I didn't get a chance to do that. There's a gentleman beside me, and he says to me, "Hey, right? Hey, where are you from?" "I'm in California." "Oh, what do you do?" Work in graphic communication." "What's that?" Right? "What's graphic communication?" Then sweat beads come out of my, "Well, you know, we do a lot with print, we do a lot with web." "Print? Oh my God, that's gotta suck, because print's dead." And immediately I looked at him, I didn't make any eye contact when we were having this discussion. Immediately I looked right at him, I said, "What?" He goes, "Print's dead." I said, "Really?" I said, "Stand up." So we stood up, and I looked, I said, newspaper, book, magazine, newspaper, book, iPhone, newspaper, book, magazine, newspaper, right? And he, "Oh gosh, man, you're right. I didn't notice that," okay? I flew to a print show in Chicago. It's September. I'm on another plane, right? Another conversation ensues. I didn't get my earphones in time. Decided the same conversation. The guy says, "Wow, printing, that's going to be a pretty disadvantaged industry to be into right now." And I kind of got boiling. I went, And then before I asked them to stand up, I looked around, because I was going to do the same routine. Everybody was on an iPad and iPhone. I didn't see one newspaper. I did see one book, and I had a book. I always carry a book with me. Everybody was on it, because we're here. Walk out of your campuses, like at 10 after the hour or after a class lets loose, and look at the students. Have you seen this? It's just out of control, how we're just so... Go to the airport, when you're in the airport, there's not one person having a conversation, right? It has changed dramatically. The question is that, how do we deal with and understanding and adapting to this change? That's truly where he's at. This is interesting too. We look at lifelong learning. You're here at this conference, which is a wonderful thing. And the reason you're here is so you can learn and you can network. Amen, right? That's what you should be doing. You should be doing more of it. We go to school for 12 years or more during our childhood, early adulthood, and then we're done. Some of you go on, we look for degrees, perhaps advanced degrees. But when the pace of the change gets this fast, the only way to retain a lifelong working capacity is to engage in lifelong learning. And it isn't just necessarily in a discipline that you're interested in, it's got to be in disciplines that you're not interested in. You've got to dip your toe into these different types of disciplines so that you can at least understand what's taking place and happening out there, okay? I'm going to tie all this up at the end for those of you who are looking at me like, where's he going? It's about adapting. My mother lives in Pennsylvania. I live in San Luis Obispo, California. I convinced her to come out and stay with me for 3 months. I've done a couple of interesting things in my life. One, I bought her a laptop. I regret it every minute. Then I bought her a Kindle. I've never regretted that even ever more. Okay? The reason is that she's having a difficult time in adapting to it. You look at the generational inertia that takes place, or even the technological divide. She's not really used to the haptics or the touch sense applications associated with it. It's very difficult for her. She gets extremely frustrated. Right? Whereas my sons and my grandsons, I mean, that's just their life now. In fact, they don't know how to use a keyboard, right? Because they're used to touching and doing things. Technology platform for society can now turn over in 5 to 7 years, they're saying, right? This is an interesting thing, but it takes 10 to 15 years to adapt to it. Think about when the telephone first came out, right? The telephone came out, we didn't understand what it was about. We took 25, 35 years to get used to that. So then when the cell phone came out, we were a little bit more accepting of the technology. You remember the flip phones? My mother actually had a bag phone. I think you drug behind with it and you cranked it up. It was, right? But not now. What do we know about this iPhone that you have here? What do we know about it? What is this? What's the version? Oh, 6. Oh my God. I mean, see, just when you said that, did you see everybody go, oh my gosh. You might as well have a cup on a string. Did you? And you hesitated when I asked you. I got something. Right? Because if we're not running around through the hallways going, hey, I got a 10, I got the 11, I got the 12.5, which is, by the way, out there, not for sale yet. These things change. We all know that it's going to do something different, right? The key here is, by the time we get used to the change, it won't even be the prevailing change anymore. We'll be on to something new, right? This is our industry as well. That's what I'm getting at. Interesting thing, and he writes about this in the book. He says, we have to be understanding of what this black elephant is. And the black elephant is essentially a cross between a black swan. And a black swan, a rare, low probability, unanticipated event with enormous ramifications. Right? We kind of get worried, well, what is going to be essentially the black swan? But he's saying that there's also the elephant in the room. And what's the elephant in the room? And he says that we've got to understand that when these things hit, they'll claim that we were black swans, but no one could have predicted, but in fact they were black elephants, very visible right now. We're just not dealing with them in the scale and the speed that are necessary. And that's where we are. I have a graphic communication program. We have 430 students in this program, of which they study print. And I still use the P word, we still teach print, right? Now, interestingly, out of the 430 students in there, and because of our close proximity to Silicon Valley, 65% of them are finding positions as UX, UI, web developer, web designers, app developer, app designers. But yet they get this foundation of print. We have a student-run, student-managed graphic communication enterprise. It's basically an implant that's run by students. I've been associated with it for, 15 years, and that's where my hair has gone. Because they get paid to fail, which then I deal with. I do a lot of apologizing. But the issue there is that we had a GOS community cold set web press. Anybody know any of this? Okay. We printed a 4-color daily newspaper when I first started 18 years ago. And it was the only 4-color daily newspaper printed by students, edited, authored, designed, and printed by students in the world. I said that at a conference in Germany. There were 350 Germans in there, and none of them contested it, which is interesting. If you can say something in Germany and they're not saying anything back, then something is good, I guess. But the key here is that we printed. So a couple years go in, we went from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. Then a couple more years, we went from 4 days down to 3, eventually down to 2, and then last year they came to me and said, Ken, we have no reason to continue to print a bi-weekly newspaper. We're going to go to 1 day a week. And at that point, I had no way that I could financially continue to keep this press in existence. The other thing I did at heart was, let's take a look at how many students that have graduated our program in the last 18 years that are actually working in a cold set web environment or even a newspaper. We found one student. We graduate 80 a year, okay? So think about that. So we had to sit down, and it was the elephant that we had to look at, the elephant, which was, do we continue to teach this technology? Is there growth in it? And the answer was no. No, and there's tears in my eyes. I have ink in my blood. A lot of the individuals who teach in the department all come from industry. 3 of them are graduates of the program, and for us to have this discussion was a very, heartening kind of a discussion. I actually mentioned it in a banquet. We had a lot of industry representatives there and alum, and I made the announcement. And there was a couple of gasps when I told them that I was taking the press out and I was going to convert the press lab into what we call a digital packaging, rapid prototyping, specialty printing lab, because that's where we felt it was important we go and we be into. And about 3/4 of the room stood up and clapped. It was an interesting response to that, right? Now, mind you, these are young students that are in there. And so they're understanding where we're going to go with it. That's where we're at, and that's what I'm saying. We've got to kind of keep that under our hat as we move here. The big thing is adapting, and how do we adapt, right? We have no choice. By the way, what do we have? 4 hours, Jen? She bailed. She's already gone. She says, keep going, right? Somebody need to shut me down if we get into about noon, right? Well, noon, 10, what's it say? We have no choice but to learn to adapt to this pace of change, right? We've got to learn this process. How do we adapt to it, right? Many people seem to be feeling lost of control and are desperate for navigational help and making sense. Isn't that really our industry? So what's great here is that today we begin, you've got 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, of some great educational sessions, an opportunity for you to get in there and learn and hear about what's out there, what are the best practices, and what can we do better to manage and or quote unquote adapt to this change, right? So lots of great things. The other thing I want to talk about is that all of us, who do we work for? Students, and I'm using the big E word, education, right? Universities, colleges, that's what we're all here. That's what Association of University and College, the Association of College and University Printers is about. And so we have to also understand what education is experiencing at the moment. A lot of change taken with education. I have a class that I give at 7:40 in the morning. So talk about trying to keep people awake. I've lost half of you already, but my God, imagine if this was at 7:40 in the morning. But asking them about, a lot of students are really calculating what the ROI, the return on investment, is with associated them investing and taking and getting and working towards a degree. There's a lot of debate out there. They're discussing it, right? And so as they're discussing it, educational institutions are discussing it too, and they're trying to think, how do we remain competitive? And mind you, we are competitive. Every one of you come from universities that potentially could compete for that same student down the line, right? So we've got to be cognizant of that with what we do. But I think what's important here is our educational systems must be retooled to maximize these needed skills and attributes: strong fundamentals in writing and reading, and coding, and math, creativity, critical thinking, communication and collaboration. How about grit, self-motivation, lifelong learning habits? We're codifying and encouraging lifelong learning habits. Not that you just got a degree and you got a job and that's it and you'll never have to ever learn anything. Wrong. We got to be learning all of the time. And of course, which I like here, is entrepreneurship and improvisation. We are, in our right, entrepreneurs. That's what we are. We have to be. The status quo no longer means. We've got to be thinking of how we can, in fact, engage with the parental mission of the organizations with whom we work and find ways to bring them apart. Another quick book. I'm trying to limit my books and my big one quotes, so I'm going to apologize for that. It's McAfee and Bryn Yolfson wrote a book called Machine, Platform, and Crowd. He's really talking about this digital future. He really gets into this whole AI, artificial intelligence movement. And you hear about this all the time. We're all worried that everybody's going to be in our brains and there's going to be robots. I don't know what I'm doing right now, but robots, right, running, doing the thing. He's saying that successful companies in the second machine age will be those that bring together minds and machines, products and platforms, right? We're talking about software applications, potential platforms that allow us to do multiple things. And the core crowd, right? We've got to make sure that we're working with the crowd, what we're doing here today. It isn't just you alone, it's all of us together. I haven't subscribed to the listserv. What do we call the listserv? Hard copy. I did years ago, and I mean, what a fantastic tool it was. And it's still extremely used. I mean, you guys live and breathe by it, right? And it's great to be able to throw something in there and go, hey, I'm buying paper, I'm paying $100 a sheet for it, and somebody says, what? What are you paying $100? You shouldn't be paying $100 a sheet unless it's made out of gold. Gold. Yeah. But the crowd is important, okay? Those that don't undertake this work and that stick closely to today's technological and organizational status quo will be making essentially the same choice as those that stuck with steam power or the group drive. Eventually they'll meet the same fate. Tonight you're going to go out and have a good time. You're probably going to go to the hospitality suite. It's going to be fun. You're going to have, you'll lose some brain cells, but more importantly, you'll have stimulating conversations. And then somebody's going to say, let's all go out and get a tattoo. I want you to remember this moment, because this is what you should have tattooed wherever you get your tattoo, on whatever part of your body you get your tattoo. It's right here, okay? Remind me, because somebody's going to say it tonight, I know. Let's get a tattoo. The other big thing, right? We talk about the elephant. Another big thing is the future labor. How many of you are how many of you have challenges with regards to dealing with what we call succession planning? Okay. And I mean by that is that we're up to this, I just turned 37, and so I don't quite understand it. But I do understand that some of you that are over 37, everybody's looking at me like, I want this guy out of here now. Well, you can do now. You're even worse because the deal here is just, we've got it, we're all getting into this age, but yet we don't have the necessarily interest to bring people in to take over. And I'm telling you, what an exciting time, by the way. What an exciting time. Right? But let's look, the future labor, aging workforce. One of the most pressing issues, right, is that 2/3 of employees working with print equipment are 45 and older. I took this from Eric Kagel, who wrote an article in 2016. We need to find these individuals, and how do we deal with that? I'll show you a bar diagram here too. Classic pipelines drying up. Methods that have provided well-prepared new employees, including trade schools and labor unions, are gone. How many of you went to a graphics program in high school? Okay, and then how many of you maybe went to university and studied graphic communication? RIT, Clemson, Wisconsin, Stout, others, right? Okay. And the others learned, through the process of an apprenticeship. Well, this is drying up. Where do we get these individuals? You look at 2017 age distribution, right? Look, we get into this age is here, right? 45. Look at the bar there. And then you take a look at those who are going to be approaching here. That's a lot of employees. And so how do we fill that? How do we work with that? And as I told you before, the same issues I deal with at the university is I have companies coming in saying, Ken, I need press operators. I need bindery operators. And I have to tell them that our students, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 that kind of float to the top, are not interested in potentially running equipment. They're interested in solving problems. They're interested in perhaps management, production management. They're all interested in creativity, right? So how do we stimulate that discussion? How do we move into that realm? I would ask you, and the first thing is that you all have access to one of the greatest talent pools of all. You have students that are going to school, and many of them want to work. And I assume all of you have student labor. No, some shake their heads, some do, some don't. Yeah. Something to be considering, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we go here, but it's a great way to get them to cultivate them into the process. Once they see, one of a good friend, actually he's an adjunct professor in our department, runs an implant. You may have heard him or he has spoken on the listserv, Gordon Rivera, and he's at Hancock College. He actually recruited one of our students to come down. He did a great job bringing him in, and this young man's come in, and he's learning the ways, and he's going to then be the next manager of, well, I think he will be, the next manager of the program, right, which is a good, and so he sees that, but he recruited him specifically out of our program. He knew to do that. So there are programs that exist. You should be tapping them, but more importantly, you need to be working with your career services department and finding ways to get individuals in there and get them excited about it. And or bringing students in their sophomore year, their junior year, so that they see what's involved, what is it, what are the great things that could be in their future. And he also says companies that rededicate themselves to serving customers, we do that, finding ways to train employees for the next round of roles rather than just those that exist today, may find themselves better prepared. It should come to no surprise in a transitional area, it's good to keep options open. As the workforce ages and individuals leave the print sector behind, leaders should be thinking about how not just to get the same production from a new wave of hires, but how to improve. It's not just about, hey, I'm going to hire you and you're going to be Bob. Bob did the bindery last year, you're going to run the bindery. No, I've got to think about how I develop a new type of position that gives these individuals opportunities for finding their passion, their need, and allowing us to expand into this uncontested space that we find is change. Interesting, took this out. There's an article called Which IT Job Will Survive Automation? I'm just trying to figure out who or what's thinking what. There's a lot of fear, right? And the top 10 skills are web production lead. And this does not mean, this is not a cold set web press, okay? This is the web production lead. Give me an opportunity to develop the web of the sites. Let me do the lead on that. Product designer, we're going to chat a little bit about that. That's an important thing. Data scientists, we teach an estimating class. We've been teaching it the same, well, I shouldn't say. We've been teaching an estimating class since 1946. It's evolved, it's changed, there's a lot of new software, which is great, a lot of things we can do. But the big thing now is they want to know, this is all about data. How do I manage this data? And what do I do with this data? And how do we interpret this data? And so what we're seeing is this data scientist kind of evolve. And there's potential for you to kind of get, again, your toe in that, and we'll chat about that. Digital marketing head. A lot of our students are finding positions in marketing, and they're getting into digital marketing. Mobile product development engineers, product developers, actuary. I actually took the first 3 exams of the actuarial tests. I did. Thank you. You're supposed to be impressed by that. I don't even know if I could spell the word actuary now. An actuary is the one who calculates your insurance rates. Dad, look how different my life has turned out. Do you know how much better? Anyway, information security analysts, research and developing engineers, quality assurance analysts. I just thought this was an interesting snapshot. Okay? This is what they're seeing, this is what we're being taught, this is what we're hearing. Therefore, we need to be able to have this needs to be integrated into our vernacular. Right? We have to be understanding. Where's this going to take us? Here's the key. Work with me, and I'm going to go through these. Digital printing, we're on it. There's fantastic vendors here that have great and unique technology, and you need to be in there kicking the tires and running 2x4s for them, even when they tell you that they won't run 2x4s. You need to say, no, I know all the vendors are saying, what is he telling them, right? Because they're out there doing this. They're testing it, and they have this great stuff that's out there. The deal is customized short-run, wow-factored output. It's no longer just going to be the old black and white, let's run 1,000 of them. Yeah, sir, certainly people need those. We need to have a wow factor associated with it. We'll chat about that. Integrated marketing communications. My gosh, if there's anything that we get out of this, in fact, you're going to get your tattoo tonight, right? What's tonight? Monday. So Tuesday night, the same thing's going to happen, and he's going to yell, hey, let's go get another tattoo. If anything, you should have integrated marketing communications platforms tattooed on wherever it is on your other arm. Okay? It's going to be a tattoo week, I guess. He's looking at me like, really? Is he telling us to get a tattoo? This guy, he's an idiot. But Digital storefronts, fantastic products that exist over there. I assume many of you are in this space, or in the process of investigating this space, or considering this space. We've got to be there. Digital packaging. I know a lot of you aren't necessarily into digital packaging. It's a commercial kind of out, but maybe you need to be thinking about how do we kind of, again, dip our toe into that, because there is some potential there as we move. I'll chat with you a little bit about it. Signage in wide format. I'll get into this. Screen printing, print electronics, I'll talk to you about that. Security, about stented and thermochromic inks, I'll chat about that. Additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing. Anybody have 3D printers? Anybody kind of cover? I talked about this in the past. It's just interesting to see where you are with it. I mean, obviously we've been saturated with them, but I have a friend of mine who has a store, and he bought 2 of them. He didn't even want to use them. He put them in a storefront, and he said you wouldn't believe the amount of business that people walking by came in, wanted to know what that was, and assumed that because they had a 3D printer, they were sexy. Right? You guys are good. So he does some prototyping. He's probably got, I just say like 3%, 4% of his revenue that he generates comes from his 3D printer, and he's out trying to do the things he can with it. But interesting. Not saying you all have to run out and get a 3D printer, although maybe a cool tattoo. You're wishing you never would have sat here. Augmented virtual reality, we'll chat about that. Web and app development, we'll talk about that. New product development. I'm saying is that and I'm not asking you to rush out and do all this, not the case. I'm asking you to become educated about it, okay? That's what I'm asking. It's just to start to learn who or what's doing what with this, where. Company that I always love to work with, Kevin Cleave, who's the CEO, it's out of LA, called Americhip. It's a marketing advertising agency. And what he says is print is actually a better way for them to market. He prefers print than he does anything. But what he does is he integrates electroconductive inks along with surface-mounted diodes and displays to make it a wow factor, right? So you'll see he does a lot of things with pop-ups, a lot of things. They had a thing that they did with Microsoft. Again, I'm not telling you this is what you're going to do or you want to do. I just want you to know that it's out there and that it exists. But he actually contracted with Microsoft. They embedded a cellular chip into a printed piece. And so what had happened is when you received it in the mail, you opened it up, it immediately then allowed you to push a button and make a call to the company so that you in fact could say, I'm interested in this product. I mean, now, it wasn't cheap, but you talk about wow. Of course, the targeted market was specifically investors who were at a certain level, right? It wasn't that they just sent that out hundreds of billions of them. But they've done some things. They also did another ad that went into a magazine. It was in People years ago. Remember when Yellowtail, is that the wine? It's the Australian wine. And when you opened it up, if you pushed a button, the little light fireflies lit up. You ever see that? Now it was all surface-mounted electronics with a surface-mounted battery and a 4-color processed piece that they folded and then attached and inserted into a magazine. But what a wow factor! And the response that they got from that was incredible. They did a thing with Pepsi where they launched a new product. They targeted market. They did that in Malaysia, it was in the South. But when you opened up the piece, it made this sound, right? They had a surface-mounted battery with a speaker in there. And then when you opened up the flap, they had the fragrant ink embedded into the glue so it smelled like the Pepsi itself. So you kind of got this tactile. I'm not saying that that's what you're going to do. I'm just saying you might want to have an understanding of what's out there and why that exists and to get people excited about it. Multi-sensory, well-designed interactive engagement. What can we do to at least take us to that one next step? We may not be over here where they are, right? But maybe we can just take one little step. This is important, okay? I'm actually banking our curriculum on this area here called integrated marketing communication. What has happened is we had a student come to me and say, Ken, we get all this great stuff with print. We do a lot of variable data, right? We do some with data, right? But I design stuff and my design is so great. But when you ask me to write content, I'm not a good content writer. And then more importantly, when I make this design and we send it out to the world, I don't know what the analytics are. I don't know how effective it is, right? So I want more of that. So we went to the marketing department and the journalism department. And I'm sure that many of you in your institutions are now playing in this space, however they call it. But we formed a minor in integrated marketing communication. We have 100 students applying each quarter for 40 seats. It's so popular. We're actually having discussions about potentially rolling it out as a major, right? But what is this? There are several platforms that are out there, and forgive me for the vendors who are in here. I'm hoping that you're here probably purveying them. I know that, like, for instance, you've heard of XMPie, and I'm not pushing anyone. XM Pi. I worked with one that Konica Minolta has released called Engage IT. But what it does is it allows me to take this campaign. If you've seen Minority Report, have you seen the movie Minority? And he has this screen and he moves all these things around on there. It's essentially the same thing, which allows me to take a database. And I can say, I want to take this huge database and I want to filter it down and I want to send this to young females between the ages of 18 and 24 who live in certain zip codes, right? And then I'm going to create a graphic, and my graphic could be that something's applicable to that specific targeted market. And I'm going to say, I want to send this graphic out several different ways. I'm going to send it out in a variable data personalized print piece. I'm going to send it out in an email that's personalized. I'm going to create a URL or GURL, girl if you will, that I can then send you to a landing page, which then has a call to action. I can also send the same thing out in a tweet message. I can post it on Facebook, and I can also even get it to the point where I'm throwing it on Instagram or Snapchat. And the good thing is, it all sits in this screen, so as soon as I get the email and I click on it, I know about it. There's analytics. And secondly, I have the ability to then have you give me more content back. When you go on that landing page, you can say, hi, I'm Ken, I'm 37, I like tattoos, right? And boom, now I've got so much more data that then it can automatically send another response email back to you. Now, my point to this stuff exists. You've got to know a little bit of back-end programming, a little bit. You've got to know a lot about front-end, okay? You got to know about marketing. So these are skill sets that a lot of people don't have that we need to cultivate. We've created 2 courses. One course we just started this quarter specifically on this. We're working with our vendors and we're trying to ultimately integrate that in with our print program. Since we've launched this, I'm going to tell you this, I've probably had 9 calls from departments on the campus wanting us to help them with their advancement efforts. The sociology department saying, Ken, we want to do this. Here's an opportunity for you to engage in the parental mission of your educational institution by getting involved with this. So I can say anything, give this some thought. Now, it's not easy, and you're going to have to understand this. My goal from an educational perspective is to cultivate individuals who understand this stuff that can go out into the world and actually make it work, right? The difficult thing. This Engage IT that Konica Minolta sells was actually a marketing agency that was based out of Las Vegas. Anybody been to Vegas? And you know when you go, if you stay there once, then you just get bombarded with a billion things, right? That's what it's all about. I think it's interesting, right? So I'm saying, give this some consideration as we move in. Think about that as we look forward. The digital package, we're going to tell you about it. It's a $45 billion. I'm not expecting you to go out and buy a $22 million HP 30,000. I don't know what the price is. I made that up. It seems like that. Anything for us over 100,000 is, well, I'm talking about myself. Perhaps I'm not. I don't want to. Yale is different. You guys have a much bigger budget.
That's the man.
Sorry, I'll stay on this side of the room. A colleague of mine, they've really moved into this whole digital packaging business. They've opened up several new plants in the area, and they're doing this flexible packaging. And of course, I don't know if you know that in some states, cannabis has become legal. For those of you who don't know what cannabis is, it's, I don't know, some kind of an herb or something, but it's become legal. And this has become a boom market. Now, I'm not saying that this is an area you have to get into, but I'm saying you've got to know that it's out there and it exists. I assume some of you have departments, food sciences departments, some in their agricultural departments. It may play in this space. It may be interesting for you to have discussion. Again, I'm not expecting you to run out and buy one, but I'm asking you to kind of learn and understand because it may afford you an opportunity to have a conversation with an uncontested space, one that you've never had a discussion with before. Smart packaging, I'm just throwing you out interesting things. $20 billion market. This is where you can take an adhesive-based substrate, and then you can put oxidizers on it. You can print oxidizers using multiple different types of printing equipment. And what it does is that when you put the sticker on, perhaps like this, in this situation, a piece of container of meat, as that meat becomes older, it will emit certain gases, which then change the color of the sticker, which then tells you don't eat it, right? And so in a lot of third world countries, this has been a great thing because it helps them, in fact, understand when this food becomes spoiled. I'm not saying you've got to jump into space, I'm saying it's important for you to understand. This one's huge, and no pun intended. We all are working with wide format and grand format, well, at least wide format. Okay, I got to tell you, if we're not covering every wall in every building on campus, that's a problem. However, I work for the CSU, I understand the UC, right? There's a lot of regulations. We printed out some wall hangings to put in one of our hallways. It was great, beautiful. The students did a great job. But then our facilities guys came in along with 72 fire marshals and said, oh, you can't do this. Well, why not? Because it's an egress, and you can't be distracting people. Distracting them. What are they going to be walking through in the middle of the fire and go, oh, look, there's a superhero. But I'm going to let you know, you can't argue with facilities and fire inspectors. So we're having discussions about it. So what we did, this is interesting, I had a couple students work on it, is that they found that there was a rule where there's only X amount of space to be in here. So what they did is they took the design and then made strips, right, so that they exposed the whiteness of the wall and didn't necessarily change the iconography, if you will, of the design, is what we've done. I'm waiting for someone to file a lawsuit. But my point of it is that you are the creatives. You have the equipment. We need to be playing and doing it. Is anybody doing any of this in their university? Are you guys doing something? Okay, great. I would love to have like a best practice session on hearing what you guys are doing there. But I'm telling you, we should be playing. Screen printing. Anybody do any screen printing? Nobody. Oh, you do? Okay. And you know, of course, and I'm not pushing products. That's not what I'm doing. But Retool has come out. They bought Anajet. And Anajet has this really cool, unique machine where you can print directly on the garment. That's kind of a thing. Anybody go to, can I say it? Anybody go to SGIA? Anybody go to SGIA? You should be. Another tattoo. It's a great show. Phenomenal amount of technology. You should be there and engaging it. But I'm saying, look at that. We have screen printing, and our students, in our student-run student management, we have a screen printing division, and the students actually do screen printing in there. A lot of the fraternities and other organizations will come in and ask them to print print shirts, and it's a real decent money maker for them, and they love it. It's exciting. That's sexy. Because every student that exists on our campuses today have something that's been printed or bought. So I take a look at that. This press that's over here, that's an Atma press. And the reason we have that, I want to mention to this, is that that's great for print electronics. Why do you care? Those of you who have your iPhone, I won't do that. That's your iPhone. You just turn it on. You have this black that's here, and this black that's down here, right? That actually is screen printed on the glass using that very press that you see there. And so Apple contacted us when they released your phone. I think Apple 4, is that what you're? I'm so sorry. Gosh, Jennifer, don't take her evaluation of me. It's Marco. It's Ken Marco. But this machine, they contacted us because they were having a 30% defect rate, and they were having this pinprick that was coming through. Nobody would have noticed it who owned the machine, but Apple did. So they said, Ken, we're going to give you one of these. We want to emulate the production processes that are taking place in Taiwan. It was a wonderful experiment, by the way. We had 10 students that worked on it, and they kind of found out what the problem was. They came up with an SOP, sent it back to Taiwan, and they actually fixed the problem. But this is a screen printing press. My assumptions are is that, and they're not that expensive, but there's got to be departments out on your campus that play or experience or experiment in some of this space. Don't know that I'm telling you to run and buy one of these, but let's learn about it. Let's understand it. Let's know. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Print electronics. I can't talk enough about this. I can't. Printed batteries are a big thing, and I know there's a couple of universities that are playing some of that space. Electrical engineering, the physics departments are in this area, chemical and chemistry departments are in this area, but they're actually printing printed batteries that then can be surface mounted. And then we use electroconductive inks using a Dymatics machine, which is a little inkjet printer. It's about this big, and we can print electronic schematics on there. And then this battery will send, I'll show you something there, will send electronic current through to a surface-mounted diode or a light emitting display. And so this has become kind of a big thing. So our student-run managed group now does some of this. And I'll show you. This was one of the pieces, I think I've shown this before, and I went to Brandon when I did it. But they printed this up, they folded it up. It has electric conductive ink with a surface-mounted battery. When you push this, your finger, it lights it up and makes this little diode light up. And they did this with another department. They did electrical engineering, and there was a physics department involved, and they absolutely loved it. This was so viral, people were running around, I gotta have it, I gotta have it, I gotta have one, right? And it was very, very inexpensive to do. So we printed this on a toner-based machine, right? And then we printed the electrical conductive inks using this dymatics and then surface mount. But it was an interesting thing. I'm going to show you another. This is more of a novelty, and I've showed this to you in the past too. Well, perhaps, but this is just, you basically, it uses thermoconductive inks. If you put a hot drink on here, what it does is that it lights it up. It's hot, right? And if you take the cold drink and you put it on here, then it lights it up as cold. Now, all of you are saying to yourselves, why the hell don't you just stick your finger in the beverage and put it on? I get that. But from a novelty perspective and from a marketing perspective, this just sent waves across the campus. There's other departments of faculty wanting to come in and go, hey, this is something that we would like to experiment with, right? Now, I'm not asking you to become electrophysicists, I'm not becoming electrical engineers. I'm asking you to dip your toe, give this some consideration, understand. Electroluminescent. If you go to Vegas, there's several kiosks. We should go. It should take not that long, right? Jennifer, are we going down there? Tonight, someone's going to say, at the hospitality suite, let's go to Vegas and get some tattoos. They sell these electroluminescent. And the electroluminescent is they print with a specific ink and then they put a permeable base over top of it, and what happens is the electrical conductor makes the gas phase out, which then makes it look colored, makes it look like it's moving like this. You have an actual battery pack. So the shirt, I bought like 3 of them. I negotiated. It was a late night. But I negotiated with the guy who gave me 3, but you have a little battery pack. There's actually a little battery pack. So it's odd to have a battery pack. But it does some cool things. When we get into packaging, the inductive charging, the new iPhone 8s, who has an iPhone 8? And do you have the inductive charger? You don't. Now I mean, but you do? You just lay it down flat. So now you can charge your phone by just putting it on this little platform, right? That's an inductive charger. The same thing is that now they make the shelving that in fact is an inductive charger, where I can take a package that I printed with electroluminescent ink and lay it on the package, and the package will light up. And then when I remove the package, then it will no longer light up because it's no longer being charged, right? What do we know about this stuff? Where are we at with that? And who on campus, more importantly, is playing in this space? And can we at least have some discussions with them? Because this is printed. I talked about photovoltaics. This is interesting. This is just a prototype, but it's a hood that has a photovoltaic on the bonnet, and then it has a light emitting display that's sitting there. And so the idea is that I could lay in an old dry creek bed. I don't know why it's there, but I can lie in this old dry creek bed and then take a nap and watch whose line is it anyway, right? And it's all powered up, right? So we know, and of course, the Army spent a lot of time in this area, in this space. We had done got a grant. With UC Berkeley, had a couple of physicists came down, and we actually printed some of this product for them and with them in the department. Again, the same thing with printed memory and transistors, to the point where I'll be able to print memory into the wallpaper that's here. When you guys come in, you can actually store your stuff on my wallpaper in the future. A lot of this is things that we're doing some experimentation with, and my assumptions are it's computer engineering, electrical engineering programs. They're probably playing in this, and again, I'm not asking you to do this. I'm asking you to understand it, learn it, have the discussions. Let's educate the community. Security is a big deal, and I'm not asking you to print $100 bills. I don't even know if it's legal for me to show this, but I think it is. But we do a lot of it. Take a look at the counterfeiting, what the issue of the problems are concerned are with that. As we do some stuff with microtype, and actually I have a faculty member who printed a 1.5 type on here, our CD74, and it was pretty impressive. I mean, it required a loop to take a look at it. You couldn't read it just with your blind eye. The technology's there. We have the ability to do that, and so then what are we doing with others within our university to move into that file? Sensitive thermal. We have a thing called Phoenix Challenge. It's a group challenge. Students get together, they're given a prompt, and the prompt then they have to actually print it on using flexography. So we have a flexograph. The deal here is that they had to, the prompt was that they had to develop a new product for a nonprofit organization. So we have a theater group called the Melodrama, and they were having issues with trying to get people to join the Melodrama. So they printed this pop-up. They hand displayed it, but more importantly, is they put the sticker on there that they used popcorn fragrant ink on it. And so when the person received this in the mail, they opened this up and the popcorn smell. It was beautiful in the department. For like 4 weeks, it smelled just like popcorn. It was really great. But that's something that we can play in. I'm telling you, the fragrant inks is something we can experiment with. Of course, the other thing you think about thermochromic, right? They actually created a wine label that allowed you to determine if, in fact, it was the perfect temperature to drink the red wine or the white wine. And they used that by using thermochromic inks that they had printed on a tag. Again, we can do these things. Think about it. 3D printing, we understand that, $10 billion industry, 2025. It's important to play, it's important to understand. I think there's just about every department on our campus now has some kind of a 3D printer out there. So what we've done is I've tried to get our students to go out and take an inventory so that we can learn who or what's doing what, so they're not necessarily duplicating effort, and we can learn from each other. And that's, in the university academic environment, we have to be silos. And we got to learn how to kind of cut the holes in the silos so we can work with one another. Something to do. I'm just going to mention this, the journalism department, the computer department, the computer science department, and our department are having some discussions about moving farther into this. Now, I don't expect you to go out and program virtual reality. Maybe you do, maybe that's a source or something that your creatives in your department can do. But I think that the augmented reality is something to give some considerations with. There's several platforms that exist out there that you can contract with that will allow you to do this. Our newspaper, I've been yelling at them for years. They're finally doing this, where I can take our printed newspaper that we only print once a week, and by the way, I've now outsourced it. We're no longer printing it on campus because we removed our suburban press. Tears. For no money, in hospital. But the issue here is that I can go on to my paper, I take my iPhone, it has an app, I put my app on there, and all of a sudden I bring this picture of a heart to life in front of me. I make a spider start to crawl out, or I can make a shark jump out at me. The program is there, it can be done, the platforms are out there. Give that some consideration. Maybe you look and explore some of the space, and there's something you can do to add. And again, the key here is then engaging your creatives to help you move in there, right? I can't talk, you heard me made the comment that 65% of our students that are graduating from our program are going into this area. Close proximity to Silicon Valley, close proximity to Silicon Beach, I get that. But this is an area. Are you doing this? Are you providing these services? Are you considering providing these services? Are you considering an augmenting or supplementing these services? Don't know. You've got to think. And I'm sure you have a lot of talented students that exist in that area. 51 billion by 2020 for Apple. Here's my peeve. Here we go. So I teach a marketing class, a sales and marketing class, and I assign all the students that they have to represent 4 different areas of our industry. One is a commercial industry, one has to be quick print, one's an in-plant print facility, and then the other one was a cold set web, because that's my big concern. And I tasked them with developing a product that will allow me to go into a new uncontested targeted market that I've never worked in before, so that I'm not just walking up and going, hi, I'm Ken, I'm in printing, and they say, I don't need printers, I don't need you guys, we don't do any of that, that stuff's dead. But if I can walk in with a product and say, I'm not here to talk about print, I'm here to talk about this really cool product that I've got, take a look at this. Let's chat, I didn't know anything about this. I say that we need to be thinking about that too. We need to be thinking about how do we develop products that allow us to go knock on the door of a department on our campus that we've never done any work with before. And this is what I've tasked them with. So one of them, they're a commercial printer, and I've tasked them with getting me into the funeral business. And you should see their eyes glaze over, right? Oh my gosh, what could we ever do to get us into the funeral business? What could we ever do? So I said, think about this. So they went out, they had to do the marketing study, they had to take a look at what people need, what the needs were, and they actually had to go to funerals. Not an uplifting, fun time. Hey everybody, let's go get a tattoo. Oh God, we're going to go to a funeral, right? They're much more happy with what. I'll leave you alone. Good. But so what they came up with is that they went and they noticed when they went to the funeral that that the individual, the unfortunate who had passed, and the loved one, they had write little card about the person, Bob was a great guy. Remember Bob? Remember the time at the hospitality suite when Bob tripped? You know, Bob was, we write that down. And then everybody keeps those cards. And it's nice. They said, well, what if we came up with, if we could print this flower, they found a die cut in this flower. And they noticed that if you took this flower, all right, the whole key was to come up with this think about this. The whole thing was to come up with this promotional package and display that they would sell to the funeral homes that then would then sell it to their clients. And so what this thing was, a little kiosk that when you walked by, you grab this flower and you would write your little memory. I forget the name of it. It was really kind of cool. But you write it down on the flower and then you convert it and attach a little metal wire thing to it, and it looked just like a rose. It was like a memory rose. And then you would place this in a vase that was laying specifically next to the departed. Really well done. And the key is that they could print this on their toner-based machine. They were able to find and get a cheap die that they could make, that they could have a die cutter. They outsourced that. And then they made a little box for it, and they would sell us. They actually went out and talked to these funeral directors, and the funeral directors said, I want these. I want them now. And they said, well, we're just students. We're just, no, I want these. I want these. These are great. How much? And they're like, we haven't come up with I'll give you $100 a box. I'll give you $100 a box right now. I love them. I mean, it's just impactful, right? Because who would have known? Who would have known that we would have the ability to, in fact, engage this specific targeted market had we not thought about a different way to get us in there, right? The same thing. The students now are tasked with an implant, and they're coming up with this, I forget what they're calling it, but it's going to be this little die-cut piece. They're going to go talk to all the departments with like frequently asked questions that aren't addressed as a student. Right? It's one thing as an administrator to say, well, we won't do this and that and the other thing, but these are questions like, hey, you know, why can't I ride my skateboard on campus? Who made that? Those kinds of things, right? And so they're out now talking to all the different programs that are on campus to find out, in fact, that this is something that they can continue to do. My point is, we are incredibly creative. We have the ability to do this. I would task this to a creative group in my department and ask them, hey, come up with 2 or 3 products that gets me into sports, with the athletic director in our sports program. I assume some of you have done some printing there, come up with some potential ideas. One we did was they did a swoosh thing. It was a swoosh thing on a stick, and they die cut this thing out, and it said 3 points, and on the back it was like Eat at Joe's, because they sponsored it and paid for it, and they love that kind of stuff. Right? So we have the ability to think about that. I just mentioned this. Snoop Dogg, who became Snoop Lion, then became Snoop Dogg again, he came up with this book that they gave out at Coachella. He and his marketing business. Just unbelievable. What a genius. And they called them Rolling Words, and it was all the lyrics for all his songs printed on an onion skin that was detachable in this book. So you could take this book, and you could read his words, and then afterwards, you could use it to have your favorite tobacco product. And he called it Rolling Words. But what's more important is that this is made out of hemp, and there's a striker on the bind. Really, they printed 500 of these things, gave them out at Coachella. There were fights. There was a website that came out that said, bring back Rolling Words. I want them. I think a student told me that they saw one online, you could get it for like $350. Who would have thought? Look what he did. He made that. Another one is I tasked students with, and I could go on and on, by the way. I tasked students with developing a product for convalescent home. And of course, you should have seen them glaze over. What am I gonna? What? I said, you've got to go to one. Any ever been to one? Well, no. Right? Talk to your parents. Talk to your grandparents. You've got to get out and talk about it. Not anything that students sit around talking about all the time. Hey, you see there's a new convalescent home down the corner. Let's get a tattoo. They don't say that, right? So what they did is they went in and they found out that one of the young lady's mother's friend had a mother at this convalescent home, and the mother went to talk to one woman that was there, and she was real kind of standoffish and didn't want to have her engage with anybody. And they thought, well, she's mean. You know, she's just a mean old woman. And we don't even want to talk to her because, well, the mother, seeing this, decided, I'm going to have a conversation with this woman. She was kind of standoffish, right? And so this woman, by the way, played piano and would go in and play piano at the convalescent home. And the mother would do this. And the woman would stand behind and kind of peek. And so finally, after the course of a month or two, she engaged this woman and found out that this woman actually had sung on Carnegie Hall like 52 times. She was a world-renowned soprano. Nobody knew about her. She had no family, and she lived in this convalescent home without her legacy, her history, unknown to anyone. right? And so what they found is that let's come up with what they called the village as well. This is the name of it. I can't tell you. But it was the name of the home. It was called the Senior Social. And by going in there and having these conversations, they found that here's a potential product. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to go out and necessarily do that, but when we have conversations, we find out what needs different departments have. We have the ability to come up with potential products from behind the counter. Right? This was another one of those where I got calls from this. We want this, right? We want to do this. The key was what we do is take the biography of the individuals and then publish them in a page, right? And everybody would get this yearbook and such that we could preserve and codify their history. Right? And so the families of the clients, and of course the home itself loved this product. It's not there, but certainly so. One thing we did years ago with Canvas, if you haven't read Canvas magazine, you should give that a look. Can I say that? It's a Canvas magazine for sales and marketing, but one of the things that we did is we created an electronic, a printed electronic cover that was on here. And this was kind of the first attempt at it. It was very barbaric, but it was really well and highly received. Again, we worked with an advertising agency to develop that, and of course we had to go with it. I'm asking, give that some thought. Right? If I just sit here and look at the next year, is there any product that we could potentially look at developing that would allow me to get into a department on this campus that we've not done business with? Let's get creative. Let's think about that. Let's throw this stuff on the whiteboard. What does this mean? I'm going to tell you three things. I love Homer Simpson. One, because they look like it, and two, because I think I understand them. Alignment. We have to align ourselves with our parental mission statement. We have our own mission statements, and that's a great thing, but we can't forget that our university, our educational institution, has its own mission statement, and we have to align with it. We have to understand it. We have to be part of that. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that an administrator is going to come in, and they're going to say, I don't understand what it is that you do. Let's put you out 32 miles away in a barn where we don't have you central to our existence as the mission statement of our parental organization. Right? Make sure we know that. Experimentation. We've got to experiment. We can't be afraid to experiment. Remember the beginning? If we're going to remain the status quo, we will become the status quo. And of course, they stand beyond the comfort zone. Let me tell you about it. Alignment, chat. Talk to your academic departments. I know the last thing you want to talk to is some arrogant, pretentious faculty member. Right? We all have our own. Yeah. We need to talk to them. What's the art design department doing, and what can we do to engage them? Do we have students from the art design department coming in and touring the facility and showing them the great things that we can do? Do we have them coming in and learning about the history of our department, or just the history of printing? Do we have them doing that? Are we talking to marketing department? You all live probably in the marketing department's offices. I know that. That's an important thing. But what are we doing to engage them and provide them with programming? We'll come back to that. Management department. Do you have a center? We have a center of innovation and entrepreneurship. You, I assume, are moving into that space. You have an entrepreneurship program that exists. Some people are shaking their heads, those who are awake. Okay, the issue is that to be part of that, we found in our CIE, we have a hothouse, startup. We have about 23 new startup companies, and it's students. And they have this area that they develop. And what we found is this triumvirate. They want to have their engineering student, they want their business student, and they want the graphic communication student, that creative. The individual who, like ourselves, among ourselves, can not only help them with designing the graphics, but also then putting them out onto the web and then helping them deal with a lot of their social media and ultimately their branding, right? That's a big thing. That's us. That's what we do. And those are the students that we can, in fact, cultivate, as I mentioned in the beginning, to work in that way. Learn about the curriculum. Do they have special topic courses? Is there a possibility that you could come in and chat about that? Is there a possibility you could bring in a vendor to come in and chat about that? Do they have a senior project, right? A senior project. Get them in there, working on senior projects. Do they have a capstone course? Do they need projects for students? And again, I'm sure many of you have gone out and have potentially tried to tap some of that market. We'll continue to do it. How about have a team of students rebrand your operation? If you have or you haven't, and perhaps that's been somewhat difficult, perhaps that's been a great, glorious experience. Create a social marketing plan, public relations campaign, production audit. Get some of the management students to come in there and do some lean productivity audits, right? Get them involved, get them engaged. Help you, help them, help you. A viral video for a PR campaign. one of the things we were going to try to do is have our own little soap opera and do like a little 2-hour soap opera for what it's like to work in the print shop, right? Have Jim come in, this sucks. I hate it, right? What do you mean? Well, I wanted, fuchsia pink, and this is puke pink. That's the other thing that came to my mind. Sorry, I know it's early in the morning. Right, and this, well, who are you? Well, I'm the designer. Well, designers don't know. And you don't. If you've seen any of the SAPI videos, S-A-P-P-I, have you ever seen them? They're hysterical. But we thought about doing something like ourselves just for our student-run organization because of the issues that students would get all over that. They would love that. Potentially, if you have the ability to do it for your own space and then post that on a YouTube page and on your website. What about having a student managed? There's a session next, I believe, one of the sessions is on how to work or engage students in your organizations. Right? Get these students engaged. Maybe there's an ability or a way for you to bring students and then have them open up a secondary center, and I'm just talking out loud, that they could in fact run. The university would love that. Why? Because you're employing students and giving them the opportunity to learn, and ultimately learn by doing. Part of the mission. Volunteer to do a lecture or a demonstration for various classes. Think about that. Go out and knock on the door, find out who or what's doing what, and then say, hey, we're doing something kind of cool. Could you give us 15 minutes? And, yeah, faculty are open to that. They want to know, hey, what is it you're doing that can provide some additional stimuli for our students so that they understand that there's a whole other world out there. The history of printing, emerging technology, DDP, production management, all of the above. Again, the experimentation. What do our people need that they do not know that they even want? The Steve Jobs. It's what we did when we came out with the iPhone, right? We're going to give you something that you didn't even know you needed. Here you are, look at it. And of course, it's all that barrage of stuff that we've discussed thus far. We need to experiment in the space. And what does that mean? Go to a seminar, talk to a couple of faculty, find out who's giving a lecture, sit in that lecture, go up after the lecture and say, that's interesting. Learned a little bit about this. Tell me more. Come on in and talk to my staff about it. Not that I'm going to play in there, but I just think it'd be good for our staff to know. I think they need to see that there's changes afoot and that we're here and potential for us. That's what I'm after. The other thing is extend beyond our comfort zones. That's a hard thing to do at times. Invite an industry representative. And by the way, if there's an industry representative in here who I haven't, don't take it personally. I just had to dump my mind at the time, so I apologize. But we got a great pool of people from industry. Bring them in, let them have a conversation with you. Let them speak on behalf of what they do. Bring them in to have a talk with your staff, but more importantly, bring the marketing people in. Bring in the art and design people in. Bring in some of the other departments. Let them hear of the stuff that's out there, because many of them have been, many people in our educational institutions find themselves siloed and are not necessarily knowing or understanding what it is that we do. I ask that. I'm talking about the 3D printer. Man, if you got like $50, go buy one and just throw it in the front window and just have it run. Because I don't know how many times I've had people come through our department, and we are a very heavy print legacy school, and the first thing the parents say is, you guys got a 3D printer? No, we don't, because there's 9,000 on campus, but we do experiment. I went out and bought one, and I literally had an open house 3 weeks ago. I must have had 12 parents come up. Did you get a 3D print? Yeah, let me show you over here. Oh, all right, this is great. Now, fortunately, one of my faculty members does specialty printing, and so she's made her own little 3D printed nameplates for her door. That are really awesome. No one else has one, just her. She's doing a bit of herself, which makes me mad. But we immediately go over and show. And they're like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool stuff. I say play there. And I'm going to tell you, explore this augmented reality, the NFC, the printed electronics, near-field communication. Understand what's out there. What do we have the ability? In San Francisco, they would print a ticket that you could then scan with your phone, and it would allow you to do some things with parking. They did some experimentation on it. It didn't roll out because it was too expensive at the time. But there's a lot of things that we're playing with here. You can do NFC with the phone now on some of the parking meters and things that play there too. But understand it. Start to feel that out. No language department. Number 2. We're almost there. We're almost there. Work with career services. Put together maybe a career service. Ask career services if you could kind of sponsor or co-sponsor a job fair. Work with specifically maybe a marketing department or an art and design department and or a management department to try to get under individuals who specifically recruit in that area in there. I think it's a great way, again, to be part of the parental mission. If I can't say that enough. Look with them. Again, it's tough for us as implants to extend our hand out to those who work or are in our community to compete with us, but it's important to know that we have the ability to kind of play in the space where some things that we can do that are perhaps different or niche-oriented that they can't. And we need to understand it. One of the things is maybe to hold an International Graphic Communication Week. We do that every year. So see if you could maybe put together an International Graphic Communication Day or an International Printing Day. Right? And then get vendors to come in and maybe have a little, a seminar for 3 hours. Bring in a couple of speakers who represent the different companies. Have them talk and present. Get some people in. Start to do some promotion like that, as you should. How about an advisory board? Do any of you have advisory boards? Good. You should get together 4 or 5 people, maybe alum, people in the industry, to have them come in and be involved. And again, what happens is universities like that, because then they know that there's multiple perspectives that exist. And you're involving alum, you're involving administrators. They have the ability to give you some feedback, and they know that you're not necessarily just in the status quo. And at the gate, what I talk about is, if you have a graphic communication program, and I have to tell you this because I'm the president of the AGCCG, which is the Accreditation Council for Graphic Communication, is that if there is a graphic communication department at your school, make sure that they get accredited. That was my pitch. Thank you very much. Yeah. Work with the high schools. This is cool. There's a school I was in Belgium called the Art de Hoge School. And they have, it's an implant, they have a graphic communication program, and they have a high school program all together in one facility. And they found that by extending that, there's monies involved that allowed the implant to expand, it allowed the school to be able to provide additional technology, and it got the high school students interested. I mean, win, win, win. It's a big deal. You can read about it if you want to know more. Contact me, I can get you in touch with the gentleman who runs that. But that's opportunities too. Elementary classes, right? I hope that you're bringing them in. Cub Scouts, bring them in. Boy Scouts, bring them in. The more you do that, the better. We're here. Question. Smarter, right? Friedman says the last 25 years is all about who could make things cheapest. The next 20 is 5 years will be about who can make things smartest. We're there, okay? We need to be thinking about how do we move farther into that space. And I'm saying, I know you're the most intelligent and creative people I've ever met who've been involved with this organization for a very long time. We have the ability. We can do this. There's a lot of great things that we can do and expand in. But we've got to bring in others to help us bridge that gap and take it to the next level. Finale. Everybody still with me? Extend beyond our boundaries of comfort. I can't say that. I know you're going to have a lot of tattoos. We got to get out of our comfort zone. Okay? I can't tell you that enough, especially in our, get out of our print shops and start talking and getting out. I'm not saying that you don't, and probably many of you are, and you're doing a great job, and if you are, hallelujah. But if you're not, we do need to start to do it. Learn all that you can about these technologies. Again, you're here. That's great. You should continue to go to these trade shows and be part of that and starting to share the knowledge that you have. Extend that. Read all about it. Right? Find all of the different, we've got great publications that are out there that are in print, grab or online. Grab those, read about them, express, experience, share. Look at the relationships that you can create, partnering with advancing the technology. Become this kind of a beacon of the technology. Get out there and let people know what equipment you have and what you're doing and why you're doing that. We're no longer just setting type. Okay, where some people think that that's what we're setting. Now, some people, by the way, are. We have a museum, we do, and it's become really sexy too, right? We've got people that come in there and they want to set type, right? Really? We have a working linotype. Anybody know what a linotype is? We have a working one, and this is funny. I'll take students and their parents for a walk, and I'm giving my whole spiel. Listen, I'm talking fast like this. Their eyes roll back in their head. Like, oh my God. And we walk down to the museum, and immediately they see this linotype. I had a young family that came through, and this gentleman was of Indian descent, but he the whole time, he's just not even, looking at me. Man, I'm juggling, I got hawks flying in, landing on my arm, I'm doing, what am I going to, I can't, we get down into the museum, and I'm like, and he walks into the room, I'm kind of like this, because at this point I was spent, right? And he immediately looks, and tears roll out of his eyes. He just sobs. I'm thinking, and I said to him, I'm trying to, look, I know my presentation was bad. No. Both my parents worked in this industry, ran linotypes. And I had no clue. I had a gentleman who was from Sweden, and immediately he walked in. And I actually had to run over there, and we had to take 3,000 pictures of him sitting in front of this linotype. Who knew? Because we all have this kind of this affinity and connection to print, as did these individuals. So I'm not saying run out and get a linotype machine. But it would make a hell of a tattoo. I'm so sorry. It's because of the table. I was used that. All right, key scene is a vital component. Be seen. You've got to be vital, and you've got to be in the middle of it. You've got to be having a neon sign. This is us. This is what we do. Hear us roar. Okay? Do that. Be vital to the organization. Reach out to other departments, even to those who you're most unfamiliar. You know who they are. Individuals who maybe you don't have an English department, damn that English department, right? Yeah. Go to the English department and go to the psychiatric or the psychology department. Set up a time there, right? Just do it all in one time. Reinvent print through new innovative applications. And I'm telling you the product development, if I can get something, see what there's out there that you can do, you can develop again to get you in this uncontested space. Great, here I am, right? We're looking at the elephant that's there. We recognize that it's time to rise anew, right? It's about rapid change. We're going to adapt to it. It's about extending this design and this technology. That's a beautiful thing. It's about exploring these new fields. It's about enhancing our innovation, and we are innovative. It's about our ability to communicate as a species, not necessarily on our phones, but as a species. It's important that we have conversations directly, eye to eye with people. Not in that. It's about visual and tactile experiences. How many of you, when you get a business card, the first thing you do is you snap it and you look at it? I mean, that's what I do, right? You get a really nice stick. You can play with that. I love a rounded corner. Ooh, rounded corner. Has a haptic coating on it. Oh, my God, feel that. Doesn't that feel good, right? We love that kind of stuff. Play there. It's about lifelong learning. More importantly, if you will, it's about acknowledging this black elephant, and ultimately, what I'm saying is releasing our tie-dyed phoenix. You are the tie-dyed phoenix, and you have the ability to bring the creativity and the color to your organization to make sure that you're vital. I thank you for letting me rant. I thank you for letting me go on and on, talking quickly. Thank you for those of you who stayed awake. For those of you up front here, I apologize. Send me a bill. Thanks again. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.